You ever wonder what the difference between a top tier Sova player and your average Sova player is? Now, actually, when you think of the differences, the main thing that might come to mind is actually lineups. Lots of players believe that to play an agent like Sova to maximum efficiency, you need to know a bunch of different lineups for recon darts, shock darts, and then always get kills with your ultimates. This largely isn't really the biggest thing that is going to separate the best Sovas from just an average Sova. In fact, I've seen many Radiant Sova players who don't really know any lineups, and I've seen many Bronze Sovas that know every single lineup in the book. So what exactly is it that is going to separate these top tier players from just your average Joe? Well, today we're going to be breaking down some of the key points from a VOD review that we did on the website, as well as comparing it to one of our Radiant Smurf commentaries that is also on the website, to talk about some tendencies that many Sova players have, as well as how the top tier Sova players will carry their games. So if this sounds good to you, just stick with us as we get into it, starting out with our very first round from the VOD review. The first thing really worth talking about is how Sovas drone correctly. Now, Turtle Figgy 61 is our hero in this VOD, and he's actually going to get some unfortunate FPS lag in this one clip, but just because I find this hilarious, imagine you're this Reyna and your Sova offers to drone for you, and then he does this. This Reyna is absolutely sitting here like, is this guy drunk? What is he doing? Anyway, people are funny, but Max actually has a really good critique of this, and it's actually pretty educational and not me just laughing at how terrible this drone was.
FPS lag here, that's unfortunate. So that's a this is a good example of, you know, using your drone with your teammates. But I would argue even here in showers, so situationally, in some spots, like for example showers, you can have more value just by throwing your arrow instead of your drone. So the reason for that being, you know, if you shoot an arrow right here on this back wall, you know, just to your right, it shows the entire bathroom. So they either have to shoot the arrow or they have to be spotted by it or run away, right? So there's no way they can hide from it. So that's how you can tell to use your arrow or your drone, because then it'd be better to still have your drone left, and you can, you know, send it from here and send it out of showers. Then see what I'm saying? How the arrow on A site wouldn't show all the possible angles, whereas the drone could clear everything, and in showers, the drone or the arrow can clear everything, and the arrow regens, so you always want to try and use that first. Nice shots, by the way.
Basically, if you don't understand, what Max is saying here is that this is a 400 credit drone. It's very good at clearing angles, and because of that, you want to get as many angles cleared as possible with it, because like I said, it's a 400 credit drone. This is tied for the most expensive utility in the game, and the reason for that is because the potential value on the drone is incredibly high. However, what Max is saying in this video is that the actual applied value of him droning through showers is not equal to 400 credits. It's actually closer to 0 credits because he could have gotten the same value out of his free, refreshing recon dart. Meanwhile, the other thing that he mentions is that Sova's recon arrow is actually not that good at clearing out angles on site because there are so many corners to hide in, particularly on a site bind. Obviously, this isn't the case with every site, but in this scenario, it is. So you take a situation where his arrow is very good at clearing out showers, but not good at clearing out site, and his drone is very good at clearing out showers, but also very good at clearing out site. It's very easy to see, based off of this, the correct decision would be to not drone showers, but instead recon dart it, and then drone out of showers to clear site. I hope this makes more sense, but if it doesn't, just remember that your drone is determined by the game to be worth 400 credits. Ask yourself when you're droning if you're getting 400 credits worth of value out of it. Now, it should be mentioned that you don't need to always get full value out of every single ability that you use, but this is a good place to start. Let's look at one more round where he maybe doesn't get the value that he's looking for out of his drone though. For this round, we're actually going to go back in time, so follow me. Now, as you watch this round, I'll give you a second to actually guess what you think the problem is. He actually gets a substantial amount of value out of this drone. You'll notice he actually spots 3 players on a site if you look at the map, and this is actually pretty sweet. Getting the information of 3 enemies' location, that's awesome. The critique that Max actually has for this round though is that he sort of just does this drone with no teammates nearby and without really saying anything. First of all, I can tell you firsthand that calling out what you're doing, what you see, and what you intend to do are some of the hardest things to improve at in Valorant, at least in my opinion. This is oftentimes one of the biggest flaws that I see in many players, and honestly one of my biggest flaws. But the reason I bring this up is because it's actually one of the easiest ways to increase the value that you get not only out of Sova drones, but also out of any other abilities that you use, whether it's a flash, stun, smoke, or whatever. When you include your team on what the play that you're trying to make is, that's when you actually start playing the game at a passable level. Max is a better player than me though, so I'll let him explain why the Sova drone could have been better.
Take flight.
So one thing I'm going to comment on here is to kind of look at the positioning when it comes to your utility. You want to be looking at the positioning of where your teammates are. So for example, here when you drone a short, you know, generally when you drone, you always want to have a teammate ready to push with that drone. So here, it looks like you don't have any teammates with you, so you're not getting as much value. Yeah, you get the info that there's 3 on site, and that could be enough for them to push. So in that case, that's a positive. But a lot of times the drone is best for taking space and having your teammate follow up the drone so you know angles are clear. So, you know, if no one's pushing with it, for example, you could see that close right here is clear, and then by the time you're ready to push alone, someone could have already rented this spot. You see what I'm saying? So think about if you have a teammate and you guys want to push hookah, if you guys want to push hookah, that's good. Or like U-Haul as a team, that'd be another good way to get better value out of your drone.
Basically, the takeaway from this should be that droning solo can be okay, but droning with a teammate is almost always going to be better. There's lots of times that our hero actually drones solo in this game though, so this is going to be the last time that I talk about that. Oh, by the way, if you wanted to catch this full VOD review from Max, he's one of our Radiant coaches over on the website. His full commentary will be available on our website for you to view. Anyway though, what is one of the big things that many Sova players struggle with? Well, Sova is actually one of the highest skill capped agents in the game, and the amount of knowledge that you can have when playing this agent of how to use your shock darts, ultimate, recons is literally off the charts. You can have so much knowledge with this agent. And although I mentioned earlier, you don't need to know lineups, what you do need to know is that peeking enemies with your utility out is not acceptable. Shock darts hit hard, but not that hard, and if you're exposing yourself to fire them, you're going to get yourself killed. Take a look at this round when his team is currently in a 4v2. Stuff like this doesn't seem like a big deal, but any higher tier player can tell you these rounds are very, very losable when your teammates are doing stupid stuff. And peeking angles like this to throw shock darts classifies as stupid stuff.
The wall. I'm holding my breath there when you shoot those shock darts in the open like that.
One enemy remaining.
Nice, good kill.
If you want to shoot some shock darts here, that's fine, but you need to try to bounce them off of walls as to not expose yourself to too many angles. You don't need lineups to do this, just use what you learned in geometry and try your best. You'd be surprised how close you can get them. Overall though, as we get into our Radiant Sova's game, the biggest difference that you're going to notice is just how they decide to gather info. Sova is an info agent, that's what he does, and he can clear angles and gather info better than any other agent in the game, and that's why he's considered one of the most overpowered agents in the game right now, consistently from patch to patch. The best Sovas take that built-in strength and use it as best as possible to win their games. Take a look at this round from Akimbo's game. He's an ex-Radiant player who has been working with us, and some of the big things I want to showcase in these rounds are his agent knowledge. Obviously, he has some lineups, and although I mentioned they're not 100% necessary to play the agent well, they do definitely help at times. But the other thing I want you to notice is how even when Akimbo is far away from the site, he's still finding ways to assist his team with both his ultimate, but also with his recon, helping his team clear out showers towards site. Because of this recon, players from showers can only really be funneled towards bench, and that's a ton of value from just using one recon. When you combine this with his ultimate on the Cypher, there's pretty much nothing that this player could do. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a lot cleaner if he actually kills the Cypher with the ultimate, but sometimes making the player run around like a monkey is all you really need. As you'll see, this Reyna cleans up the kill. Now, moving on to the next round, we actually didn't have any perfect rounds to showcase this, but I want to give you an example of what it looks like to use your recon to clear corners instead of using your drone. Notice how in this situation, because Akimbo actually recons along rather than droning it, he's actually able to push up on the recon and take the space himself when no one shoots this. You compare this to the clip that we talked about with Turtle, where he droned through short and wasn't able to grab any space off of it. In this situation, because he uses his recon, he doesn't need to be stationary when it gains value. He has a few rounds where he actually drones up long and sort of switches this up just to be less easy to read, but for the most part, I want you to see how this sort of thing works in application. Especially at lower ranks, players won't shoot recon darts. They'll just let him get 3 pings off and act like it's no big deal. And it's a super big deal, and Akimbo just pushed up long practically for free. Unlucky for his team that they actually left the spike in front of Hookah, so it's going to put them in a little bit of a rough situation. But like I said, there wasn't exactly a perfect example of this, but I really wanted you all to see what this looks like in use. It's all about getting the maximum value out of your abilities. He could easily drone this, but why would he drone when he could just use a free ability that refreshes? Let's move on to the last round that we're going to talk about though, and generally when you're playing Sova, you're going to be looking to cycle your recon dart and using them for as much info as possible. This is why you'll see Akimbo uses his recon at the start of the round so frequently. He's actually only going to be able to use it once in this round anyway, but something I want to comment on is how he sort of sacrifices his life to engage after using all of his utility. Notice how he's patiently looking for a pick in this round after using all of his util, and there's not much more that he can do at this point. This is why after the pick actually though, you'll see him lead the way for his team by attempting to entry for them. Now he's actually going to get picked off, but that's all in the name of entry. He switched from a position where he gathers info using his utility to gathering info using his body. And this might sound like a meme, but this is actually how duelists gather info in the game. They obviously don't have the tools in their kit that Sova might have, so when they need to gather info, they need to generally peek. But if you really think about the difference between a duelist and a Sova with no utility, they're more or less the same. Sova eventually is going to have another recon dart that refreshes, but for the most part, he's not going to be nearly as valuable to have alive as, say, a Jet with full utility. Now, Akimbo promptly gets obliterated during his entry, but he gets his team the information that Skye is in Cubby, and even after having 2 players die to her, his team is able to trade out the kill and put themselves into a 2v1 to win the round. Akimbo didn't hard carry this game, but he did a really good job of knowing how to use his utility to benefit his team, and also recognizing when he just straight up needed to fight. And that's a healthy balance that many Sova players don't have. You can take this back to the clip of Turtle just firing off shock darts in the open, and that's a situation when it probably could have just been better for him to have his gun out. Throwing shock darts can be good, but it needs to be at the right time. Same thing with Sova's drone or his ultimate, and this is a big thing that many Sova players struggle with, which is not knowing when to use their abilities and when not to. I hope this was helpful for you all though, and if you want to see both Akimbo's VOD with his commentary as well as Max's VOD review of Turtle's game, those will both be available on the website for you to improve your Sova gameplay. As always, all of this is backed by our rank improvement guarantee, so if you don't find the value that you're looking for, it's literally no risk to check it out. As always, my name is King, and we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.